Okay, so that was the first type of fortitude. Okay, the fortitude that can deal with, criticism, insults, various unpleasantries, not getting what we want, people not appreciating us, them harming us, these kinds of things. Then the second one is the fortitude of voluntarily accepting suffering. Okay, so this is not masochistic. This is just the fact that, suffering is part of our samsaric existence. And if we can accept it without getting upset and angry, then actually our suffering lessens and we can transform it into purification instead. So this is the ability to endure physical or mental suffering and hardship with calm. Imagine not freaking out, not crying, not yelling and screaming, not throwing anything, not blaming other people, not having a fit, not sulking. Wow. Okay. The ability to endure physical or mental suffering and hardship with calms. There are times in our lives when we willingly bear suffering. A woman in labor willingly bears the pain of childbirth. Similarly, we cultivate the capacity to bear suffering without becoming upset, because doing so will prevent future suffering and enable us to progress on the path to awakening. So if we respond to suffering by getting upset, blaming, all these other things, because afflictions have risen in our mind, then we're creating the cause for more suffering. Okay, so we create negative karma, and that will ripen in our experience of suffering. And also, when we get upset and so on, it worsens our suffering in that very moment. Yeah, I think we can all see that from our experience. When we start to freak out, we're very, very unhappy. And the more we let our mind just elaborate on how horrible the situation is, how we're terrified because we're sick, how it isn't fair, how, whatever it is, then the more mental suffering we inflict on ourselves by our way of thinking. Okay, so this idea of bearing suffering willingly is not something new, because we do it in our lives already, like the example of a woman in childbirth. Also, you go to school, okay? Sometimes you have to study late, you have to memorize things, you can't do what you want to do because you need to study. So, you learn to just give up what you're attached to and go through what you need to do and, get done what needs to be done. Yeah. And I think they call that delayed response, that you're okay with, no, not delayed response, delayed gratification. Yeah. And that, instead of always wanting to get what we want immediately, we're willing to go through some difficulties in order to have a better happiness later on. Okay? And so, people often, they don't buy things they want now in order to save money to get something they really want later. Of course, that's really been changing over the years, and people just so much clinging on to instant gratification that actually causes them more suffering when they can't manipulate the world to give them what they want immediately. We become like small children having a temper tantrum. Yeah. But this is just part of life. And I think the more we just get used to it, then it isn't so bad, or it doesn't have to be so bad. Okay. When experiencing physical pain from illness or injury, or mental pain from injustice or betrayal, we remember that this pain is the result of our own destructive actions. Okay, we can reflect, is it better that this karmic seed ripens now as present suffering rather than in a horrible rebirth in the future? Or no, not in a question. It is better that this karmic seed ripens now as present suffering than in a horrible rebirth in the future. Yeah, so seeing that whatever misery we experience is due to our own destructive karma, then not getting upset, not blaming other people, and realizing that it, could, the karmic seed could ripen in something really horrible in the future, and it isn't. So, whatever we're going through right now is actually quite endurable. Yeah. Because sometimes we just go, I can't stand this. Yeah. But if we stop and reflect, this karma could have ripened in me having a lower rebirth for an eon or two. Then is, the discomfort that we're feeling right now, anything really compared to having a lower rebirth for a while? We got off easy for creating destructive karma if all we have is, like an illness or something this lifetime. Yeah. Because all the things we experience, they become bad. The degree in which we see them bad or horrible depends on how we compare them to other things. And the same with, seeing things as good depends on how we compare them with other things. Yeah. And so if you get sick rather than have a lower rebirth, that's okay, isn't it? Yeah. Wouldn't you rather have that than, a lower rebirth for an eon or even a lifetime? Yeah. So then getting sick is not a big deal. Our minds don't have to, blow it up over the top, okay? Or just facing difficulties in our life, which we always face. And there's nowhere where we can go, no physical place where we can go, where we're not going to experience difficulties. The only way to avoid difficulties is to attain nirvana. So as long as we're, in a situation of cyclic existence, then we better get used to it and get used to being able to handle the difficulties, knowing that we're experiencing them because we ourselves created the cause. Yeah? And then that just cuts that whole mind of blaming other people. And it cuts the mind of self-pity. It cuts the mind of, it's not fair. And it just is like, okay, here it is. Karma works, just like the Buddha said. And if I don't like this result, then I need to be careful about the karma I create. Because if I respond to this pain and misery by having a fit, I'm creating more cause for the same pain and misery I'm experiencing now. Whereas if I can deal with this with acceptance, some kind of compassion for myself and for other people, then that karma's finishing and it's over and done with. Yeah, and that's much more advantageous, isn't it? Or we can think, may my suffering suffice for the misery of all sentient beings. Okay, so when we're sick or we're injured, it's going to be uncomfortable. So may it suffice for all the discomfort and pain of other people, and especially those who are having the same kind of illness or injury that I have. Yeah, by my experiencing it, may they be free from it. And this kind of thing of taking this on voluntarily and with compassion, it actually lessens our own mental suffering tremendously. Whereas the more our mind rejects the reality of our experience and says, I don't like it, it shouldn't be this way, that mind that rejects it creates more suffering here and now and in the future too. Whereas the mind that just says, okay, here it is, got to deal with it, then there's some kind of acceptance and peace in that mind. Okay, is this making some sense to you? Yeah. Okay. We contemplate that enduring suffering with a calm mind dispels conceit, strengthens renunciation, fortifies our refuge in the three jewels, and increases our compassion. Okay? So this is the benefit of enduring suffering, is all of our conceit gets shattered. Yeah? Our conceit. I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm intelligent, I'm this, I'm that, I'm on top of the world. And now I have a big problem, or I'm sick, or whatever. All that conceit, it's like sticking a pin in a balloon. Okay? Have you had that ever had that happen to you? Yeah? You think you're kind of nice person, on top of the world. I got everything going for me. And then you have a problem and it's like kerplunk. And hey, wait a minute, I'm just like everybody else. Imagine that. What a shock. Yeah. So it dispels conceit, strengthens our renunciation, because we see that, this is the nature of samsara, and if we want to stop experiencing it, we need to generate the aspiration for liberation and create the causes for liberation. It fortifies our refuge in the three jewels, because we see that at the end of the day, that's what we have to rely on, that all of our temporal things that we think are going to protect us can't at the end of the day. And it's really our refuge that always goes with us and is always available. And it increases our suffering, also increases our compassion, because we experience what other people experience. Okay? So it's kind of like, have you ever read any of the articles, like when a doctor gets sick and a doctor has to be in the hospital, and then they have to experience what it's like to be in the hospital, and wait for the treatment to come, wait for the doctors and nurses to come, have people be too busy to talk to them. And, it's a very humbling experience. And then they come out with a whole lot more compassion for their own patients. So, since suffering's definitely going to come, unless we attain liberation really quickly, then very good to develop this kind of fortitude. It'll save us a lot of misery. And then the third is the fortitude of practicing the Dharma. So this enables us to happily continue to learn and practice for however long it takes to fathom the Dharma's deep and detailed meanings. Fear and resistance may arise along the path, because the Dharma challenges our dearly held but afflictive preconceptions and prejudices. If you haven't had that experience, stick around a while longer. Yeah? And you will see it, that you believe such and such is like this, and then, the teachings tell you it's the exact opposite, and your experience tells you it's the exact opposite, and you're still hanging on, these entrenched afflictions and preconceptions. I'm right. Okay? And then fear comes sometimes, When we start to see, what we have to give up to really practice. And I'm not talking about giving up your hot fudge sundaes. I'm talking about giving up some of our identities. The way we present ourselves to the world, who we think we are. And to really, when you really get involved in practice, you have to give those up. Yeah, because they don't hold water. And the world is not going to comply with all of our, unrealistic identities. Yeah. And actually, this is why we experience so much suffering, because the world doesn't go along with treating us who we think we are. We have to kind of give it up. And all certain emotional habits that we have, ways of always interpreting things, ways of always, I'm the person who's always left out. Oh, I'm the person who never fits in. I'm the person who people don't appreciate. I'm the person that everybody ignores. I'm the person that everybody dumps their problems on and expects me to solve their problems. I'm the person who, give me some more. What do you have? Yeah. So, all these identities. I'm the one who's the best of all, but nobody sees this. I'm so...
always pointed out that nobody else's are.
Yeah, oh yeah, everybody, my faults are always pointed out, but nobody else's are. The world is unfair. People are against me. Whenever two people are talking in a low voice, they're talking about me. Yeah. Whenever she gives an example in the teaching, she's talking about me. So all these kinds of things that we hold on to that make ourselves quite miserable. Okay, so that all that has to be given up. They pick on me. I get blames for things I didn't do, and when I try and explain why I didn't do that, they cut me off and don't want to listen. Yeah, and that's my teacher who does that. She blames me for things I didn't do, and when I try and explain how innocent and pure I am, she says, I don't need to hear your excuses. And they aren't excuses. They are reality and the truth. And I've got to say that, and I've got to defend myself. She doesn't want to hear it. Right? Yeah. I have my whole story, the story of all my tragedies in my life. And I go to tell my teacher, and my teacher looks at me and says, then? What do you mean, then? These are my traumas. What's happened in my life? Then? Yeah, that's what my teacher did to me. Yeah, I go in with all my, then? Then, this is tragedy, Rinpoche. Don't you see this? This is national catastrophe. Don't you see how the world's been unfair and how much I'm suffering? Then? Okay, so all of that we got to get rid of. Yeah, and we have a lot of attachment to that. Yeah, a whole lot of attachment. Yeah, we have attachment to our CV. Any situation we come into, we have to let people know everything about all the excellent stuff we did before. Yeah. And then you come to a place like this, and we're in silence half the time.
They don't listen when you say it.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Sometimes I get up from the table and kind of leave when people.
Yeah. It's like, okay, time to wash the dishes.
The important thing is, can you run a chainsaw?
Yes, right. Yeah, we don't care that you were head of a Fortune 500 company. Can you run a chainsaw? Let's get down to what's important here. Okay. So, fear and resistance may arise along the path because the Dharma challenges are dearly held but afflictive preconceptions and prejudices. It takes fortitude not to retreat to the habitual emotions and behaviors that are the very source of our misery, and instead to arouse courage and continue practicing. Yeah. Meditating on emptiness challenges the very root of innate self-grasping ignorance, so great fortitude and courage are required to dismantle it. This fortitude includes accepting Dharma concepts that our wisdom has not yet penetrated by trusting the Buddha's word on the basis of the teachings we have already understood or experienced. This enables us to continue to investigate the teachings, knowing that time is needed to fully understand them. As we gain the fortitude born from reflecting on the Dharma, we become able to tolerate things that previously seemed intolerable, like these macho Italian monks. Yeah, like the Geshe who criticized me when I'm working with him. Like all these people who are so obnoxious towards me. Oh. Yeah. You see, I never forget any of them. If you're mean towards me, don't worry, I will always remember you. Sometimes people write and say, oh, do you remember me from this and such? And then I can see, if they were, I know, usually I can't remember them. That's probably because they weren't exceptionally mean to me. But the ones who are mean, oh yes, I remember you very well. Okay, then the next one is joyous effort. Okay, so the perfection of joyous effort. Joyous effort is an attitude that takes delight in virtue. Without it, actualizing our spiritual aspirations is impossible. But with joyous effort, we happily practice the path for our own and others' welfare, without discouragement or exhaustion. Okay, and you're going to say, wait a minute, without exhaustion. I get exhausted. If you're practicing joyous effort, you know when to rest. And you know how to keep yourself balanced. Okay? With indefatigable, did I say it right? Indefatigable effort, we will not give up when we undertake to fulfill the collections of merit and wisdom and to liberate all sentient beings from samsara. Thus, joyous effort is said to be the source of all auspicious attainments. So the texts generally mention three types of joyous effort. First one is armor-like joyous effort. So this is enthusiasm for practice. It enables us to continue without falling prey to the laziness of procrastination, pursuing meaningless activities, or discouragement. With it, the bodhisattvas vow, I shall dedicate myself for eons to benefit even one sentient being. Okay, so this one, the armor-like, counteracts three types of laziness. So what is defined as laziness in Buddhist practice is not what is normally called laziness. Just want to see if this is talked about later. Doesn't seem. Okay, so one laziness is I'll do it mañana en la mañana. Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow morning. Yeah, so we're very familiar with that one, you know. I'm tired, I'm busy, I need to relax, I'll do it later. Okay, so this is the mind that, says, oh yes, I want to meditate every day, but I can't do it starting tomorrow morning. I'll start the morning after that. Okay, so the laziness of procrastination. The second kind of laziness is the laziness of being busy doing worldly activities. So Geshe Nawandarge used to say, we are the busiest of the busy, you know, but what we're busy doing is creating more causes for samsara. Okay, so we are busy with Facebook. We are busy gossiping. We are busy with, you know, all these, our hobbies and our sports and shopping and this and that and the other thing, climbing the corporate ladder, you know, all these things. I am so busy. And there's so much stress on people right now, you know, that if somebody asks to meet you, I mean, you've got to say, and they propose a time, you've got to say, I'm busy at least 3 times. Otherwise, you don't have a life. If you have any free time, you don't have a life. Yeah. And so I think this is just too much, you know, totally too much pressure. And what people are doing isn't stuff that's really worthwhile. It's, you know, you're going to the disco and going to you know, the art gallery and going to the football stadium and going to the, you know, going to work, you know, because now you got a promotion, so you get the honor of working 12-hour days, whereas before you only worked 8, but now you're promoted, you know, and on and on. So, you know, keeping yourself very busy doing things that are not Dharma oriented, and so not purifying, not creating merit. Okay, and then the third kind of laziness is the laziness of discouragement. I just can't do this path. It's just too hard. It's just too hard. I mean, what do they want from me anyway? This is unrealistic. You know, when I was a Christian, Jew, Muslim, all I had to do was just pray to God, and that was it. You know, pray to God, put a little money in the offering dish. I didn't have to do anything else. Now, what do they want from me? I have to get up every morning and do prostrations, you know, and I can't just do prostrations. I have to generate a good motivation before I do them. And that is just, you know, I don't like doing that. And, you know, and then there's all these things that I have to do. I don't know. It's too hard. It's too hard. I want to go back and be a Christian. Yeah. So there's heaven, there's hell. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I just pray when I die and it'll be okay. Yeah. So we think either the path is too hard, the goal is too high, or I am inferior and I can't do it. You know, everybody else has Buddha nature but me, not me. Yeah, they were handing out the Buddha nature and they skipped over me. I didn't get any, you know. And I have so many problems. You know, I have so many emotional problems and my afflictions are completely crazy. And I just, you know, how am I going to handle it all? It's just impossible. You know, I can't do it. Yeah, and then we, you know, either go watch TV or we self-medicate. Well, watching TV can be one form of self-medicating. Okay, and then we don't even try. And we remain quite miserable. So the armor of joyous effort is the one that is enthusiastic for practice and doesn't give way to these 3 kinds of laziness. Then the joyous effort of acting constructively So this is supported by a deep aspiration to benefit sentient beings, and it makes our mind energetic and delighted to practice. So it's the joyous effort that loves creating merit, that loves benefiting others, that loves doing Dharma activities. Okay. So these kinds of joyous effort, these are things that we need to cultivate, yeah? And then the third one, the joyous effort of benefiting sentient beings, reaches out to help the same groups of sentient beings mentioned in the ethical conduct of benefiting others. So remember when we went through that yesterday, people who are grieving, who are sick, who are in poverty, who need help carrying out their plans, all these different kinds of people, then this is the joyous effort that benefits them. So those were just, I think there's 12 categories of them. So those are just examples of the kinds of sentient beings to generate. It's not limited to them. Then the Abbey Alankara, or the Ornament of Clear Realization, speaks of 3 types of joyous effort that counteract the 3 types of laziness. So the joyous effort of not being attached to frivolous actions counteracts the laziness of attachment to the 8 worldly concerns. So that was the second attachment that I spoke of before, the one that keeps us the busiest of the busy. Remembering the disadvantages of cyclic existence jolts us out of our complacent distraction. Then the second is the joyous effort of not becoming fatigued, and this opposes the laziness of sleep, lethargy, and procrastination. Okay. Contemplating death helps us appreciate the opportunity our precious human life affords and dispels this kind of procrastination and laziness. And then the joyous effort of thoroughly upholding the path opposes the laziness of discouragement that thinks I'm incapable of practicing the Dharma, the path is too difficult, or the goal of awakening is too high. Okay? So there's various ways of talking about joyous effort. These are 2 of them. Okay, there's more also. Sometimes we want to develop a certain skill or to help others, but our work does not turn out as we wished, and we feel discouraged. And that happened to anybody? I should tell you what I went through in starting the Abbey. I should tell you. Yeah, you guys just don't appreciate what I went through. Well, it's a long story. Yeah, with lots of chapters. How I've sacrificed, what I've done, and how people mistreated me. Yeah, I could. And then you start the Abbey, and what do you get? All these disciples that say, yes, but.
The life of the Bodhisattva.
Yeah. Yeah.
As the Abbey turns.
Yeah, as the Abbey turns. Yeah.
Movie.
Yes, we'll make a movie about it. It'll be the sequel to The Flying Nun. Okay, so so this, we feel discouraged. This happens to me too. This is His Holiness saying. But when I examine my motivation, my confidence returns. I begin with a sincere desire to benefit. Regardless of what others may say, knowing that my motivation was genuine gives me courage and inner strength. Even though I may not be outwardly successful, I still feel satisfied. On the other hand, if my motivation is not sincere, then even if others praise me and I become famous, discomfort and self-doubt plague me. So what he's saying is, if you have a good motivation, you do what you're able to do, and let your good motivation be the thing that brings you the joy, whether you get praised or blamed. It's important to counteract the laziness of discouragement. Do this by reflecting on the fact that you have the potential for liberation and full awakening. Reflect on the marvelous situation of freedom and fortune that you have with your precious human life. Recall that the Buddha was once a limited sentient being like you, but through his diligent practice, he attained full awakening. Okay, so there we have 3 antidotes. When you feel discouraged, do you remember any of these?
No.
So whose problem is that? Yeah, so that's the thing, we have the antidotes here. We need to remember them and then apply them, when we have whatever it is that, they counteract, in this case, discouragement. So the antidote, reflecting that we have the potential for awakening, the antidote of recalling our freedom and fortune and precious human life, and recalling, the third is the antidote of remembering that the Buddha was once like us, and yet he was able to attain full awakening. So if he can do it, we can do it. Initially, our ability to practice is quite weak. As we practice repeatedly, our capacity increases. When our capacity becomes strong, we will look back and see that what initially seemed almost impossible has now become possible, and that we have accomplished what we did not think we could do. Our inner capabilities have grown because we made effort. Okay? So do you ever, here he's giving us something to do, to look back and see, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where was our practice? What did we think it was possible for us to do then? Yeah, what had we been able to do then? And then now see what we've done in that intervening time. And sometimes we're really rather surprised because what we thought we could never do, we've managed to do, or at least to make some inroads with. Okay, so His Holiness always says, don't compare yourself to the way you were a month ago or a few months ago, but think back a year or a few years, and that's when you really begin to see the difference, and that will give you a sense of confidence, that you can actually change. Okay, so we need to do that. Not just read about it in the book, but do that. 4 forces counteract the laziness inhibiting joyous effort. Thinking of the benefits of joyous effort and the faults of laziness, we generate interest in cultivating joyous effort and abandon laziness. So that first force is interest in joyous effort and abandoning laziness. Okay, how do we cultivate it? Thinking of the benefits of joyous effort and the faults of laziness. Okay, with stability, so that's the second force, we continue whatever virtuous activities we begin, committing to do them only after examining whether we have the time and ability to complete these projects. So I think that's quite important, that we, before we take on a lot of things, before we volunteer to do a lot of things, that we really check in with ourselves and how much time do I have? What's my level of ability? What's my level of interest? And then only say yes according to, after we do this kind of assessment. In other words, not being so enthusiastic that we don't think clearly about what we can do and what we can't do. And then we volunteer for all sorts of things. And then when somebody's waiting, when we said we'll have something ready and nothing's been done, then the other person's in a real bind. Okay? So rather than overcommitting ourselves because we haven't evaluated what we're capable of doing, really taking our time and checking in with that, and then saying, I can do this, but I don't think I can do that, and, making commitments accordingly. Okay, so that makes that brings stability in our mind, because then we don't feel under pressure, we don't feel stressed, and there's a confidence that comes from being able to bring to fruition what we said we would do, instead of promising to do things and then dropping them part way.
Is the exception the things that you want us to do?
Those are things that you definitely have the ability to do. You don't need to Twitter about those. Or flutter. Yeah. Is Twitter a word besides that?
Bird's Twitter.
But yeah, birds Twitter. Yeah, okay, like flutter. Okay, I thought so. Yeah. Okay, so we want to develop that kind of stability. And then with joy, that's the next one, we consistently and continuously act in beneficial ways. So instead of, like I was saying this morning, practicing really strong for a certain period of time and then taking a vacation from practice where we don't do anything at all, and then coming back again, roar, and then dropping it again. So instead of that, something that's continuous and can build on itself. Okay, and then the fourth is relinquishment. And with relinquishment, we rest our body and mind when needed, and later enthusiastically resume our virtuous activities. Notice, it does not say, I push myself until I become in such a bad mood that nobody can stand to be with me and I get sick. Okay. It also does not mean any time the slightest little thing hurts, I collapse and I immediately go to bed. Okay. It also does not say the moment somebody says something I don't like, I cry. Well, there's who I'm going to look at. I'm going to look at you. I'm going to look at you. I'm going to look at you. Okay. Oh.
Yeah, I don't know how you missed me.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, just notice what these four powers are, what they are and what they are not. Okay. Bodhisattvas cultivate three types of confidence, enabling them to maintain their joyous effort. Okay, the first one, with confidence in action, they are prepared to act alone without others' help. Okay, so this is when Lama Zopa says, I shall liberate all beings in the hell realm by myself alone. That's an extreme version of this. Okay, but it's that confidence that, yes, I can do something. Yeah, instead of, oh, gee, I don't know, it's kind of hard. People may criticize me if I don't do it right. I don't want to be in the limelight because I might let somebody down. can I, like let you know later? Okay, so it's not that. We'll never get to Buddhahood that way. Okay, so that's confidence in action. With confidence in their capacity to work for others, Bodhisattvas engage in beneficial activities without self-doubt or hesitation. Okay, without, I want to benefit this sentient being, but I don't know if I'm doing it right. Should I go visit them today, or maybe I should go visit them tomorrow, or I don't know, or maybe should I wait until they contact me? I really don't know. And then once they do and I meet with them, what do I say? I've studied all this stuff, but I don't know. What do I say? I want to help them. Yeah, please, can you tell me what do I do? I'm really not sure. Oh, you're busy. Oh, please, can you help me? I really don't know what to do. Help me decide how to live my life. Oh, you're busy too. Oh, please, yeah. Can you help me with this? Oh, you're busy also. Oh, see, nobody can help me around here. Yeah. Yesterday I came and knocked at their door too. And they were busy. And the day before, I knocked at the door, and they were busy. And the day before that, I also asked them for help, and they were. Everybody's just busy around here, and every day I need some help because I can't figure out what to do, and I don't really trust myself, and And every single day I go ask them, and every single day they are too busy. Yeah.
You're working on joyous effort.
Yes. Yes. No, they're playing with the cats. Yeah. They have play so much with the cats, they have no time for me. And I am so earnest in the Dharma. I'm one of the best disciples around, and they don't have time for me. Is that ringing any bells anywhere? No, okay. Yeah, it wouldn't ring with you. I wasn't directing it towards you. Yeah, you know how to dodge everything. Yes. She played dodgeball in grade school because she dodges everything.
What does it mean, dodge?
Dodge, something's coming towards you and you jump out of the way. Just you wait. Okay. Where were we?
Confidence for both afflictions.
Okay, yeah. So then the fourth one is the confidence.
Third.
No, okay. Third one. No, wait a minute.
There are 3 types of confidence.
3, okay. So we did the confidence in their capacity to work for others. They engage in beneficial activities without self-doubt or hesitation. Then the third one, confidence to oppose afflictions. They are determined to prevent and counteract afflictions. So they really have a strong determination to do that. Bodhisattvas reflect, have I accumulated the collections today? What have I done to benefit sentient beings today? In this way, they remember their heartfelt spiritual aspiration and encourage themselves to act upon it. Bodhisattvas willingly take upon themselves the suffering of all beings and rejoice in their merit and virtues. They frequently recall the Buddha's great qualities and perform all actions motivated by bodhicitta. Whatever happiness they experience, they aspire for all beings to experience it as well. In this way, day by day, they accumulate the requisites for awakening. So day by day, gradually. Okay. Then the perfections of meditative stability and of renunciation. So these meditative stability is from the Sanskrit tradition, renunciation from the Pali. Yes?
I've been waiting all day. So I was reading last night, Being Nobody Going Nowhere. It's by Aya Kema, who is a Theravadan nun.
Uh-huh.
And she was talking about renunciation as the renunciation of the 5 hindrances. And that's why they relate compare so well.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
of not only the sense pleasures as we talked about here, but all of them.
Okay.
And she talks about how dropping all of those 5 hindrances is what will cause the effect.
Yeah.
Meditative stability is not acquisition, it's an effect of releasing everything else.
Right. And so that's how it would relate to meditative stability. While different in name, the Sanskrit perfection of meditative stability and the Pali perfection of renunciation deal with the same practices: renunciation of sense pleasures and cultivation of concentration. Actually, the renunciation of sense pleasures is the biggest thing. Yeah, because that includes also attachment to praise, approval, reputation, all sorts of things. Okay. The perfection of meditative stability involves developing concentration through the 9 stages of sustained attention. That was talked about earlier in the book. The method to do this was described previously. There you go. While bodhisattvas renounce the pursuit of sense pleasures to develop the 8 meditative absorptions, those are not their main interest. Their ultimate aim is to use their concentration to develop the insight focused on emptiness, and then use that to cut the root of samsara and eliminate the 2 obscurations. The parami of renunciation is grounded in realizing the unsatisfactory nature of samsara. Based on a sense of spiritual urgency, bodhisattvas abandon attachment to sense pleasures and existence in all samsaric realms. Renunciation protects bodhisattvas from extreme asceticism, involvement in the afflictions of others, and indulging in sense pleasure. Okay, so here renunciation is also not only of sense pleasures, but of existence in the form and formless realms as well. In other words, wanting to go beyond samsara, to not get stuck in any of the 3 samsaric realms. So the renunciation is balanced. It protects practitioners from extreme asceticism, thinking that we have to punish our body, because that's not the way to do it. And it also, impedes our getting overly involved in the afflictions of others. Yeah, so this happens when we are very involved with family. Okay? Because families always have drama, don't they? Yeah, when you're in touch with your family, what do you usually talk about? What other family members are doing? Yeah, and then this one isn't happy with this, and that one isn't happy with that, and and so it's very easy to get very involved in other people's stuff. And not only with family, but also with friends, it can happen. If you have friends that, they're always, there's some people that kind of live from one crisis to the next. Yeah, have you ever met people like that? I mean, always one crisis, then another crisis, then another one. And then it's very easy for us to get over-involved in their lives in a way that doesn't help them at all. And it would be actually much more helpful to get them to pause and realize that it's possible to live their life without so much drama. Okay, that may take them a while to understand, but the thing is here, when we get overly involved in other people's stuff, then our Dharma practice doesn't proceed because we start worrying about this person, we worry about this one, we become Mr. or Ms. Fix-It because we're trying to rearrange the world for other people so that their problems go away, but then somehow they always manage to have more problems and we try and fix those and then fix that, and then we don't do what they want, so they get upset with us or somebody else gets upset with us. And so we're overly involved in people's stuff. And that's not helpful for them, and it's not helpful to us. Okay? Benefiting sentient beings? Yes. Becoming people pleasers who are enslaved to other sentient beings? No. Okay? So learning to discern the difference. Yeah.
As a happy householder, I always have, when I see this kind of statement, I have to remind myself that's the goal for somebody who's committed to becoming a bodhisattva. And it's hard to stay in that realm as I'm reading these things and make that distinction between living as a family person in samsara and trying to do your best there, as opposed to trying to become a bodhisattva.
But I think I don't think it's good to say, well, I'm just a layperson living in samsara, so I'm not going to try and become a bodhisattva.
But I don't want to do this with my family. I'm happy. I'm happy with my family. It's satisfying, brings me joy, does the things I want for this life that I've lived so far.
Yeah.
And I don't choose to give that up for another direction. I'm happy to study the Dharma. It makes me feel a whole lot better than I would otherwise. It makes samsara a lot easier to deal with. But I wouldn't exchange my children, who would not have been born otherwise, or for having started out at 20 years old in search of the bodhisattva.
Yeah.
You understand? I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying I have to remember, because I'm startled by these passages like this. And that's arrogant. And I said, no, it's not. It's appropriate for the ones who are in that level.
Yeah. But even as a householder, do you think it's helpful to get overly involved in the afflictions of your kids?
Oh, of course. Yes. Yeah, of course.
You think it is helpful to do that?
But it's actually, I'm really interested in their lives, because they really interesting lives.
But that's different. Being interested in their lives is different than taking responsibility for everything that happens to them, even when they're adults. Okay.
That's what I mean about being a happy householder. We're pretty not involved in that kind of.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you're actually fulfilling this.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, because this is talking about being protected from being involved in the afflictions of others. So if you're a happy householder and your kids are managing very well so that you have good relationships with them and you're not always running from one crisis to the next with them, then you happen to be very, very fortunate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then you don't need to worry about this because you're not overly involved in the afflictions of others. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, is that clear for people? Yeah. Overly involved is when you're taking responsibility for other people's problems that are not their responsibility, that are not your responsibility. And in the process of doing that, not holding them accountable and so not letting them grow. Yeah, keeping them like infants, where every time they have a problem, they call you, and then you flutter and twitter, and go crazy because you have to fix their problem. Okay, that's what this is talking about. That's not what you're doing. Okay?
I was waiting for that.
I used to do that. That's what I've learned here. I definitely did that.
Yeah,
It's enabling others and they don't grow.
yeah, say that into the. Yeah, and you listen to her.
I did this. I was a child. This started when I was a child, and so I maintained certain kinds of relationships through my life, and I wasn't trying to. I was in the people pleasing thing and not aware of that, and also I didn't. Sometimes problems are so difficult; it's hard to know how to help. But this thing of not knowing the bounds of what's my responsibility and what's theirs, and really it was enabling, and so. That kind of involvement in that way, it just wasn't, it never worked. It made me sick inside, kind of, and it really helped me. These kind of things we're talking about now really have helped me, and they've helped the other people. They really have, because there's some things, you're trying to do things for people that they have to do for themselves.
Yeah.
There is suffering with people who make poor choices for year after year after year, and consequences happen, and there's this suffering of having to deal with that. But the way I was trying to work with it wasn't really helping. And then some of it is actually quite tragic, and that's the reality. But it doesn't help to try to step in more than really is wise. It's like compassion without wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And it also prevents us from indulging in sense pleasure. Yeah. Okay. So that doesn't mean we don't have pleasure. It just means we don't indulge. Okay. We don't go overboard with it. To reinforce renunciation, bodhisattvas reflect on the dangers of sense pleasure. Now, here, when it talks about the dangers of sense pleasure, it means the danger of attachment to sense pleasure, the danger of getting hooked in by certain things such that we lose our freedom because our mind is just overwhelmed by attachment and it follows whatever it is that we're attached to. Okay, reflect on the dangers of sense pleasure, the distractions of the householder's life. Okay, so this is designed for monastics, that part, and the benefits of monastic life. They see that career and family lead to numerous entanglements that consume time and galvanize afflictions. Sense pleasure gives limited pleasure and abundant harm, like honey smeared on the blade of a sword. They are fleeting like a flash of lightning, and they intensify our thirst like drinking salt water. So here, this is talking about, we can see, in America today, how people are so hooked by sense pleasure, that they're running from one experience to the next, like junkies looking for pleasure. Yeah. And that's when we really need to stop and say, is living like that valuable? Yeah. Is it valuable? Is it worthwhile? Does it lead to goodness in the long terms? Or am I just, really being like a junkie running from one thing to the next, never satisfied with anything I experience, but always looking for the next high. Yeah. And then for some people, literally, the opioid crisis. Yeah. What's happened to people's lives, just, being... The pleasure apparently is so strong that, you can't detach your mind from it. and then you've lost your freedom. Seeing these disadvantages, bodhisattvas contemplate the benefits of renunciation, simplicity, and solitude, and become monastics. So this is written particularly from the Pali point of view, not so much from the Sanskrit point of view. Living with ethical conduct, they cultivate contentment with robes, alms food, and shelter. And through this, they come to delight in meditation and attain the jhanas. Here, Dharmapala discusses the 13 ascetic practices and the 40 meditation objects for the cultivation of serenity, which we went through a couple of weeks ago. Then the perfection of wisdom. Cultivating the wisdom, intelligence, and knowledge to attain full awakening does not require a high IQ or educational degree. Rather, we must be open-minded, have the ability to learn and analyze clearly, be sincere in our spiritual aspirations, and have created sufficient merit. Our intelligence and ability to understand can be increased in this life through learning, thinking, and meditating under the guidance of a wise and compassionate teacher. So really, it's something quite notable that being learned or being smart in a worldly way does not equate to having Dharma wisdom. Yeah, and you see people very highly achieved in worldly ways who cannot understand the Dharma at all. Yeah. In the Sanskrit tradition, the perfection of wisdom is of 3 types. So first, the wisdom understanding emptiness. Second, the wisdom of fields of knowledge and skills necessary to benefit sentient beings. And third, the wisdom knowing how to benefit sentient beings. Here, the wisdom realizing emptiness is emphasized because without it, we remain in samsara and our ability to benefit others is restricted. So meditation on emptiness is of 2 kinds, space-like meditation and illusion-like meditation. Space-like meditation is meditative equipoise on emptiness, the selflessness of persons and of phenomena. It is called space-like because emptiness is unencumbered and limitless like space, and the mind meditating on emptiness is spacious, uncluttered by the appearances of inherently existent objects and discursive conceptualizations. So that's referring to meditative equipoise, the state of meditative equipoise when only emptiness is appearing to the mind, not any kind of conventional object. Okay. After refuting inherent existence, what remains is mere nominal existence. It is obvious from our own experience that things exist and bring help or harm. Our actions have effects. However, when we analyze how these things exist, we cannot find anything that exists from its own side, in its own right. Everything exists by being merely designated. Okay, so on one hand, things cannot bear ultimate analysis. When we investigate what is this thing really, we cannot find something that is it. But when we don't investigate and analyze and we just relate to things on the basis of appearance, then there's this whole multitude of different phenomena that we contact and engage in. Okay, so we need to develop wisdom regarding both of these, how things ultimately exist, their ultimate nature, and then how they function on a conventional level. After practitioners arise from meditative equipoise on emptiness, things once again appear inherently existent due to the latencies of ignorance. Bodhisattvas now do illusion-like meditation, reflecting that things are like illusions and that they appear one way as inherently existent, but exist in another as empty of inherent existence. This meditation enables practitioners to remain equanimous regarding the seemingly attractive and repulsive things they encounter. Mindfulness of the illusion-like nature of persons and phenomena reinforces their realization of emptiness in formal meditation sessions. Okay, so that's how it's done in the Sanskrit tradition. You have sessions of meditative equipoise where you analyze, where you first have an inferential realization of emptiness, then you have a direct perception of emptiness. During the time of the direct perception, there's no appearances of other objects, only emptiness appears. But when you come out of your meditative equipoise and you're not analyzing, your mind is influenced by your meditative equipoise. So now, even though things appear inherently existent, because we still have the latencies of inherent existence on our mind stream, because we've had eons of, familiarity with inherent existence, it's not going to disappear, or eons of familiarity with the appearance of inherent existence, it's not going to disappear after realizing emptiness once. So inherently existence is still appearing, but now instead of assenting to that appearance and thinking that that's the way things really exist, the mind sees things as like illusions, not as illusions, but as like illusions in a particular sense. How are they like illusions? Because illusions, when you have a face in a mirror, it appears to be a real mirror, a real face, but it's not. So it's a false appearance. In a similar way, when we're out of meditative equipoise, we see things and they appear truly existent, but due to having the realization of emptiness beforehand, then bodhisattvas know that appearance is false. And so, in that way, it's like an illusion. It appears one way, but it exists in another way. Okay? So that bodhisattvas, they don't go to either extreme when they realize emptiness. They don't think emptiness is the extreme of total non-existence, and they don't think that the appearances, when they're not in meditative equipoise, are appearances of inherently existent objects. Okay, so they don't go to the extreme of nihilism or the extreme of absolutism.
Do you have to have a direct realization to have that illusion-like?
No, you can do it with inferential also. Yeah. But I think as you go from inferential to direct, and then also as you go on the successive bodhisattva grounds, what illusory appearance is, your understanding is going to deepen. And your perspective is going to change as you get more and more familiar with emptiness.